That is the awesome part. Now, just in full disclosure, I did hit the record button because you were going somewhere really good. So
Thanks, Bobby.
yeah. So guys, hey, welcome back to the Big B Mortgage Podcast. This is, of course, Big B, and today I've got somebody really awesome in my chair, Miss Kelly Lindsay Rogers. Now, the reason I did that is, and by that I mean hyphenated that last name. I'm going to let Kelly talk about it a little bit, but first, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Big B. How you?
Oh man, it's just another beautiful day. You know how it is. Any day above ground's a good day, right?
Absolutely.
So, and then plus, any day in the mortgage business is good, isn't it?
It's a great day.
Come on now. Tell me how you really feel, Kelly. Come on. Come on. Don't BS the BSer.
No, it's a phenomenal day. Any day in this business. I love it.
Yeah.
Don't you?
Always.
Yeah.
Even on the bad days, I still love it. I mean, there's, you know, it's one of those things like it's a passion project. Not a project, but it's an exercise in love. Mm-hmm. Right?
It absolutely is.
The love you have for your family, you know, is completely different than the love you have for your team. So it's just, it's the same but different. I don't know. Do you find that?
I do. It's expanded. So, you know, you love your family, you love your team, you love your referral partners. Can I say that word, partners?
Of course, yes. There are no compliance police on the Big B Mortgage Podcast.
Awesome. And then you love the people that you change their lives. I mean, and for those of us that have been in the industry a long time, that becomes thousands of people, and they're just part of your big family.
Right. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the long time.
Yes.
How long you been doing this?
I started in this business in October of 1995.
What?
Yes.
Good job.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was 11.
There you go. That's it. Well, we're not doing video on this, but, you know, obviously if we were, it would be a great day because they could see that you're not lying. That would be good. Yes. So what I normally like to do in these, and, you know, we kind of talked about it before. I mean, I want to educate people about who is Kelly Rogers, right? Okay. Because you're definitely, as far as producers go, you're one of the tippy top, man. You're up there. You're on that, what we call the summit, right? You're climbing that summit. You're getting there. And I know you've got really big things that you've got planned and things that you're looking to accomplish, especially in this year, right?
Absolutely.
But, like, you started somewhere. So let's go back. Was this your first sales job?
So it was my first sales job, unless you count that retail job at 16 at Contempo Casuals at Town Square Mall, where I was just a part-time sales associate.
Contempo Casuals?
Dude, that was the place to buy your clothes in the 80s.
Oh, my Lord. For me, it was the 90s, and I did not work in retail in that regard, but I used to go to this place called Structure. Structure. It was like the store. I don't even think it exists anymore, but the thing I loved about it is everything was coordinated to match everything in the store. So as long as you knew your size, you could walk in and grab a shirt from one side of the room and pants from another side of the room, and it was just going to work.
It was Garanimals for grown-ups.
There it is. Right there.
That's awesome.
So retail, you did a little bit in retail as a teenager.
Did a little bit in retail, also did some retail in college.
Okay.
And then was out of college, was a single mom.
Yeah.
And was getting my real estate license.
Yeah.
Met a guy in a bar.
Hey, this is going to go good. I'm getting excited now.
And was talking about my hopes and dreams and my plans and how I was planning to go into real estate and be a real estate agent. And
right.
Wait. You can't do that. You've got to go into mortgage lending. Which I thought, is this guy trying to pick me up? Or is he trying to, what's he trying to do here? And just started citing all these different studies and how real estate lending was actually the better job for me. And it was, no, I've done my research. I'm going to do this. It's going to be great. And so, of course, I got his business card. He was in the mortgage business. He followed up the next day and emailed me over this article about how phenomenal mortgage lending was. And so I talked with him for a little bit, and he said, you know what, if you don't believe me, I'm going to give you 3 names of 3 other people I know in this business, and why don't you just call them and see what they think about it.
Wow.
I don't think he expected me to call him. I called him.
There you go.
I called each of them, got an interview with 2 of them, went and sat and met with them, and ultimately chose to go to work for one of them.
So not the guy you met in the bar?
Not the guy I met in the bar. Did date him for a little skosh, little bit.
But that had to be awkward.
It was. I went with a company that was a little bit more structured.
Sure.
Had a great training platform. Because I knew that if this was going to be a career that I could call mine, I had to learn the business.
Right.
So it was a great opportunity, and I was with them for several years. Got into the business, went and got my training for a week, was handed a laptop, went back and met with my sales manager. He told me, we went through good faith estimates, how to prepare those for a couple of days. And then he said, okay, you're ready for your first sales call. So he went with me on my first sales call, and I was given the pitch of, you don't have to send me all your business, just give me one deal.
Ooh.
And sat down with a realtor with him next to me. It was a realtor I'd known.
Right.
From a friend of my mom's. And I start saying that, which felt so cheesy. And literally, I start saying it, and she helps me finish the sentence of, just send me one deal, right? And I just said, oh, that does not work.
Oh, so you've heard this pitch before.
Yeah. Yeah. So I realized very quickly, sitting across from her desk, that was not going to be the pitch for me.
Right.
That I had to have some sort of value proposition to set myself apart from the other people.
Absolutely. Well, and I mean, that's the thing. Like, it's very hard to really kind of, I think, especially if you're new, to really come up with that. What is your value proposition? In other words, but what is your true value proposition? So many people I hear pitch is, oh, we got great rates. Yeah, okay, cool. So do a half a dozen other companies. Mm-hmm. Like, what really sets you apart? You know what I mean? Oh, I answer my phone all the time. Well, you're supposed to do that. Mm-hmm. or call me back.
Mm-hmm.
You know
exactly.
What I mean? So what is your value proposition?
So my value proposition immediately became the relationship.
Bingo.
And I just immediately, sitting across the table from her, I realized, you know what, that's not what this is about. And so I have to set myself apart. I can't be that person that's in here schlepping loans to them. And that was an epiphany for me at 25 years old, sitting there. But I also knew I had to make it happen very quickly.
Right.
I had given up my really nice 2-bedroom condo in the city to move in with my parents so that I could make this endeavor work.
Whoa, wait a minute. You gave, okay, and again, for those of you who don't know Kelly, you're in Houston.
Correct.
Texas.
That's right.
So a condo in the city is actually a big deal.
It was. Yeah, I was just inside the Loop, for those that are familiar with the Houston market. I had found some success and had not huge success, but was doing okay. I had a daughter who was in pre-K and was a single mom, but knew that what I was doing wasn't going to be a long-term job, that it was something that I would do for the rest of my life. I wanted to utilize some of my education and do something that didn't have so much of a glass ceiling.
Right. So
I wanted something that I could determine what my income was.
Right. You could write your own destiny, for lack
That's
of a
right.
better term, right.
And so I remember when I sat down and met with them about what my pay was going to be, it was 100% commission.
Sure.
With a teeny tiny guarantee for the first 3 months.
You got a guarantee?
Oh my goodness. I don't know. I think after my insurance was paid, I may have brought home about $60 pay period.
Right.
So
and even back then, that wasn't much.
No. It wasn't even enough to cover my marketing expenses. And so I fortunately had parents that had a nice 5-bedroom home. Mm-hmm. So my daughter and I we moved in with them for 6 months, knowing that I had to make this work.
Wow.
So I was determined.
See, I think that's awesome, though. I mean, because it's a lot of times people don't realize sometimes you got to take and not that I want to call what you did a step back, but
it was a step back.
It was a step back, right? Like,
absolutely.
I mean, you had to sacrifice because of this. Let's call it a dream, right? At the time, because I mean, we all talk about make a plan and have a vision, but realistically, if you really break that down, wouldn't you agree that it starts with a dream?
It absolutely does.
And so you were just chasing that dream. I love it, man. That's awesome. So you did that. You move in with your parents, which I'm sure at 25. How old was your daughter again?
5.
5 years old. Giving up that feeling of independence.
That was a humbling moment for me,
Man.
But it was one that it had to be done.
Sure.
In my opinion, and it was very motivating for me to make my sales calls every week. You learn in this business that it's commission based.
Yeah.
Just like in real estate, you're paid based on the volume that you close. And the market that I was in was not a very high volume market. And I found that I not only wanted to rely on real estate agents, I wanted to go after that builder market. I saw that even then, that was there was much more opportunity there
right.
to have a diverse book of business. So I looked throughout Houston to determine who were some of the builders who were building in a higher price point.
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually about 45 minutes away from where I lived. And so I would take 2 days a week and I would drive out to that market. Started on a weekend, went and just walked through the builder models so I could learn about the models, learn about their features, told them that, I was just looking at homes.
Right.
And by the way, I just happened to be a lender. Great to meet you. Didn't try to sell them on anything, just wanted to make that connection. And then gave it about 10 days and then started going out to visit them once a week. And it's funny now, I listen to people 25 years later who have this methodology of, well, so you just do that weekly pop by. Well, no one coached me on that back then.
No.
It just made sense that if I wanted to build a relationship with them, I needed to see them once a week.
Right.
So
yeah, how else are you going to get to know them?
Exactly.
We didn't have, Facebook back then?
No, we did not.
We
just barely had cell phones.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Didn't they still flip?
They did flip.
They flipped.
And we also had separate pagers. Do you remember that?
Oh, my Lord. Don't remind me about the pager.
Yeah.
I had a buddy of mine, talking about pagers.
Uh-huh.
Had a friend of mine. His parents had a very successful, it was like a Staples, but like a locally owned thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Office supply store. And anyway, he was one of the more well-off kids in our crew.
Right.
But he got this pager to where when you paged him, it was an operator.
Wow.
Yeah. And the operator would take your message and type it out.
Fancy.
And send it to him.
Nice.
Yeah. So you got a message from Bob, bring more cold cerveza to the party or whatever.
Right.
Which was great, and depending on what you were calling him for. You
right.
know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's like, can you just tell him to call me, please? There were a few of those. But
how funny.
Yeah.
How inefficient.
Exactly, right? Yeah, how bloated was that P&L? You know what I mean? But, yeah, I had the pager. And, of course, I had the pager with the little chain that would hook onto your belt.
Oh, say it isn't so, Big B.
Yes. I was corny to the max.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But, yes, I definitely remember those. But what I also remember is that the cell phones were a lot tougher back then, too.
Yes, absolutely. And at that point, I didn't have a flip phone. It was a bag phone in my car.
Oh.
So.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Two purses.
Yeah. I didn't carry it. It just stayed in the car. So, anyway.
Oh, my gosh.
But even then, relationships that was the key. I realized very quickly that I wanted to have a deeper relationship with the people that I worked with. That just made sense to me. I didn't want to go out and call on 100 different people and count on maybe getting one deal a year from them.
Right.
I wanted to develop a relationship with someone where we could have an ongoing conversation that we've got to have a friendship, but actually got to do business together.
Yeah, but did you find back then that it took longer to build a book of business doing it that way?
So,
in other words, because I mean, you know what I'm getting, right? I mean, the initial knee-jerk reaction is, okay, well, let me just get that one deal.
yes,
That one deal could lead to 2 deals,
correct.
right? But if you don't, but with you were looking at it more strategically. I'm sure you wouldn't turn away a deal back then.
Absolutely not.
But you were looking to build it deeper.
Mm-hmm.
Did it?
Yes.
I mean, did it take longer doing it that way?
It did take longer, but I found that with builders, it was easier to get them to send me business back then.
Sure.
I always made sure that my car was clean and I dressed the part and looked as professional as I could. And any opportunity I could have to get connected with them outside of that model home,
Right.
I did. I used. So like the local home builders association, whenever they would have events, I would make sure I went there. And the great thing is if you knew 2 people there and a room full of people that didn't know you, you could leverage those 2 relationships in the room to get you introduced to more people.
Right.
And so it unfortunately there was no marketing playbook. There were no business coaches back then.
Not like now.
No. And so you just kind of navigate your way and find your way in trying to build the relationships. I had some great successes. I was with them for almost 5 years, and then we relocated due to my husband's work to the north side of Houston. So I had to start over.
So you got married during that time.
I did. I got married about 1.5 years after I got into the business.
Nice.
Yeah. And then had a child and then had another child. So at this point we have 3 daughters, and we relocated up to the Woodlands.
God, I love the Woodlands.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I love Austin, but man, the Woodlands is just wow.
Yeah, if I could be in Austin half the time and in the Woodlands the other half of the time, I think that would be a pretty sweet life.
Would there be like some good zen for you there?
That would be great.
Equal parts yin and yang?
Exactly, because there's such a dichotomy between the 2 of those.
Yes. Every time I go there, it's just like, good Lord, man. Like, because you get to Houston, and if you've never been to Houston, you owe it yourself to go. I mean, some of the best, art and museums I've ever seen. And obviously,
food.
you guys have a great food scene, too.
Yes.
And I'm a super proud Austinite.
Yes.
But, wow, I mean, it's Houston.
Correct.
Right? But, yeah, you get up into the Woodlands, and it's a world apart. And it's only 30 minutes away.
Correct.
But it's its own world.
It is. It absolutely is.
And I actually learned some history on the Woodlands that I didn't even know. I didn't realize that... oh my God, what was the famous billionaire they made the movie The Aviator about
Howard Hughes.
Howard Hughes. That was a Howard Hughes project, wasn't it?
Well, it was Howard Hughes project, but it was actually started by George Mitchell.
Really? Oh, see, I didn't even know that.
George Mitchell founded the Woodlands back 40 plus years ago.
Wow.
So, and then Howard Hughes came in later. Our office space that we are currently in the Woodlands is a Howard Hughes building.
Is it really?
It is.
That is cool.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's just so nice up there, too. And I think you guys have a very robust market going on, right?
So we do in the Woodlands, and it's funny. People think that the Woodlands is just this bustling metropolis of so much business, but it is a very competitive market.
Sure.
There are thousands of realtors in that market that are doing business in it. And I think one of the things that carried over from me back from my first days in the 90s, even today in the Woodlands, is that I don't just market in my backyard.
Oh, there you go.
I have business relationships all throughout the city of Houston, which has served my business well, because when there are downturns in the Woodlands market, which there are.
There are.
Just like there are in every market. It's funny to have a city like the greater Houston area. The Woodlands may be down, but the Katy market may still be going full steam ahead.
Sure.
And then inner city may, in certain price points, like that $400,000 to $800,000 range, never slows down. So it was important for me to have relationships in all of the key markets so that I would have a balanced business.
You know, that brings up a great point, because I think a lot of people don't understand what their balance should be. Right. Now you're not just realtors, right? Because I mean, you mentioned early on you also love that builder model too. Mm-hmm. So how do you have a formula you use for? In other words, do you call yourself 50-50, or
No.
is it just, you know what, these are my relationships and my relationships and my relationships?
So I look at it two ways. Yes, my relationships are my relationships, but I do have a formula, and I track all of my business. I have a good book of business that comes from builders. I have a great book of business that comes from real estate agents, or partnerships between real estate agents and builders. And then I have a good book of business that comes from the business world, like financial planners, wealth advisors, CPAs,
Sure.
and some attorneys. And it's important for me that I always have those relationships to draw business from.
I think a lot of times people just look at it's either builder or realtor, but there's a lot to be said for, you know, I mean, I had one guy who was like, nah, man, I work with divorce attorneys. I'm like, what? Mm-hmm. I mean, it sounds a little morbid, but
But think about it. They're going to need to sell the house.
There's going to be an event.
Or they're going to refinance that house, even if they don't sell. But if that divorce attorney sends you that referral first, then you get to hand that relationship over to a real estate agent.
Right.
So you've just helped your divorce attorney, you've helped their clients, and you've put a referral in one of your real estate agent's laps.
You see, people, you're just getting nuggets left and right here. Come on now. So take me back again. Let's go backwards again.
Okay.
So you were with that company for 5 years, and then you changed companies, or was that the point where you kind of went from, because, and again, you can guide me through this, but, you know, were you an LO who then took the leap of faith to start managing a team, or did you go LO to LO, and then that vision of leadership came later?
That vision of leadership really came later. When I relocated to the Woodlands, I had no relationships there. And that was frightening for me as a loan officer who was 100% commission. And so I was given the opportunity to go into an MSA where I was in a real estate office. And I took that. And it gave me the opportunity to build relationships there in that real estate office, which was a successful, thriving real estate office in the Woodlands, but then also get my feet wet in the Woodlands and begin to build relationships throughout the Woodlands. And was there for a few years, and then had my fourth daughter. So
baby number 4.
Baby number 4, had our last 3 girls within 4 years. And so when that fourth daughter came along, I, at that point, did have an assistant and a loan processor, obviously, that worked with me, and took a few months off, and then realized that I was going to take some time off and be a stay-at-home mom to these kids. I remember my quote to my husband was, if we have to live under a bridge so I can be home with these babies, then so be it. Wow. It's more important for me to be home with them than it is to be gone from them all day long.
Wow.
So
that's wow.
And it felt like at times that we might be living under a bridge.
I bet it did, yeah.
Just getting used to giving up that income wholeheartedly. But what started it to be 1 year then turned into, well, I'm going to wait until the baby starts kindergarten. And then it wound up being 8 years before I went back to work.
You're kidding.
So it was actually great timing. I exited when she was born in 2002, just when subprime was really kicking into gear.
Yeah.
And I
remember.
Yeah. And then I watched the whole fall of the market from an outsider's perspective, watched all the implosions, and then came back in 2010 when everybody questioned me and thought I'd lost my mind for going back to the mortgage business at that point. But it was either I can go to work for Pottery Barn or I can go back to an industry that I know and love.
Right.
So
wow.
It's what we did. I just jumped right back in.
You know, that is, wow. And jumping back in, especially during those times, It's like people, it's like when you hear our company's story, right? That it was founded in 2008. Which was even worse than 2010. You know what I mean?
When all the mortgage companies are closing.
Hey, let's open one up. Like, this is a great idea. But obviously that's worked out quite well. But so when you re-entered the industry, did you just go back in straight LO, straight commission?
I did.
Start re-engaging the relationships? Were you able to get previous relationships back on board, or had that landscape change for you?
I have some relationships, Bobby, that I started working with back, some of them in 1995 when I first started. I have some relationships that I started in 2000 when I moved to the Woodlands, and I still do business with those people. We're still friends. We still go to dinner together. So I'm very fortunate. And I think that's really the whole relationship-based business has served me well. And that wasn't a business model for me. That was something that I needed. I thrive on that relationship.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's, obviously the relationship, and relationships is something that in podcast after podcast after podcast, when I get to sit down with somebody who's in your position, at your level, right, it's that word comes out so much. And I mean, I even use it with people, like I said earlier, talking about recruiting. I mean, the power of relationships is just, but it can't be used as a trigger word either. Like, you've actually got to take the time to get invested in these people.
Absolutely. You do. You're constantly assessing your business if you're running it like a business. And that's one thing that I realized several years ago, was that even though I may work for a corporate entity, I'm an entrepreneur.
Yes.
And I run my own business, and I have a responsibility to run it in a way that brings value to my team and to my partners and to my clients. So finding a company that allowed me to work within that framework was huge for me. But this, at least one full day a week, coaching and training their sales team.
Right.
Cultivating their leads for them. And doing different events with them. And so at that point, that's when I learned to really manage and track my leads to the nth degree. When you have a relationship like that, it was smart for me to break out and do a separate lead tracker and determine where's the business coming from. And so then you look at it, and if you're closing 25% of every lead that comes your way, and for some reason your numbers start going down, I couldn't understand why our numbers were going down, and we had this enormous amount of leads coming in every month. And so my coach at the time said, you need to break out your leads by your teams. So if you're paying in some way for leads, then break that team out separately. So we did. And they were literally sending us as many leads as every other referral source that we were getting. So that's why our leads were doubling. And our return on leads from them, we were closing 1% of the leads that they sent us. And exactly.
Yeah.
And so then you start to realize, you know what? I run a relationship-based business. We invest a lot of time into each of our clients. And if we are getting 60 leads from you and we are closing one a month, or one to two a month from those 60 leads, it's probably not a good rate of return for us. No. And so having to fire that relationship, I worked for months coaching them to try to help them build a relationship-based business. But they were very used to that lead buying methodology.
Oh man, I hear it all the time.
So it's just understanding what your own business model is. And I think that takes a lot of introspection that a lot of us, or a lot of people, don't take the time to do. I think when they do take that time, that's when their business really begins to skyrocket.
Absolutely. Understanding
your numbers is key.
Yep. And actually knowing your value, I think, is key too, right?
Right. And we've talked about that before, Bobby. Yep. Understanding your own value, breaking it down to how much time do you invest in your business? how much money do you make or do you want to make, and breaking it down to how many families do I need to help each year in order to achieve that goal. And then when you break it down to that, you also break it down to, okay, how many leads do I have to get in order to close that many loans to get to that goal? And then you break it down to how many relationships do I need to have to get that amount of leads to close those loans to reach my goal. And then you know how many people you need to talk to each week.
Yep.
So,
the way it was introduced to me is reducing it to the ridiculous.
Exactly. Yes.
Breaking it all the way down. And I used to do, when I was a branch manager, I had my little method, which is nowhere near. I never came from a coaching like what there is now. Okay, the only coaching I ever got was when I sold mobile home. But the point I'm making with it is back then we had a coach, right? And he would come in, and that was the first time I was introduced to it. And he had this thing that he would call, the power of 10. And what it was is for every 10 people you talk to, 10% of those people were going to do this. And of those people, then your amounts start to increase. And so he had like this really kind of odd, I shouldn't call it odd, it was a different way of looking at it, to where you would incrementally grow your closing percentage. But it started off with that really small number. And so the whole thing was okay, for every 10 agents that I would talk to in the mortgage business, one would give me a chance, kind of a thing. And it was kind of shooting with a Tommy gun versus like the sniper rifles, because now the training and the coaching that comes out is way more intense, way more detailed. And what can I say about it? Your closing ratios, what do you find? Because to me, it's like 30% is like kind of like the average. I mean, what do you find in that? So, is it a different kind of number? Do you look at that?
Absolutely.
What is your closing ratio?
I look at that every single day. So we manage the leads that come in.
Yep.
And I manage it to probably a higher level than most do, but every single lead that comes to us. So if a real estate agent says, I want you to call James for me and see if you can get him to apply.
Yeah.
I want to put him in my car, but I'm really trying to just get him engaged in the home buying process. Even that's a lead for us. We count that as a lead. So you have someone who may or may not want to purchase a home. They may want to rent a home.
Right.
But that's a lead. So if we have a name and a phone number and or an email address, that is a lead for us. And so we manage to the number of leads that we get every single month. We look at how many apply and look at that percentage. And for us, we run about 63%. So 63% of the leads that we get apply. And interesting, I was talking to another loan officer this week, and he said, wow, I've never managed to my lead. I just look at the people that apply.
Right.
And I said, so what are you doing with those leads that you get that don't apply? Well, if they don't respond the first time, then I just move on to the next one. Ooh. And I said, well, that's where we differ. We have a system where we follow up with them 3 times on the telephone, plus an email, and then we follow back up, of course, with the referral source after the 3rd time and ask them to re-engage them. And then we will continue to follow up with them even if we don't get in touch with them on a biweekly basis. So we're helping our realtors and builders convert leads. So we get leads a lot earlier than some lenders do because we're part of that follow-up process for them. Yeah. We move the needle for our referral sources because of our intense follow-up.
Wow.
So that's part awesome. Of the value add that we bring them. But we manage that. So we manage that lead to application, and then we manage that lead to close. And because we're counting every single lead that comes in, our closing ratio sits at about 22 to 24% on any given day. So if we're getting 75 leads a month, then we're closing 15 transactions. If we're getting 100 leads a month, then we're closing about 25. And I say that, we look at the number of leads. I track leads so closely because depending on the number of leads we're getting in a month, that's what determines what our closings are 60 to 90 days from now.
Yes, I can relate. Part of the thing that if you ask anybody who works on our team, they'll tell you the one thing I always stress is, guys, your created numbers are down. You're not getting enough, whether you call it at bats or opportunities or whatever. You're not starting enough, because this isn't going to hurt you today, but it's going to murder you in 60.
That's exactly right.
And so now, and the amazing thing is how much activity there is at the beginning of 2018. I mean, it seems like even though rates are going up and this and that, and you're starting to hear a little murmurs in the industry about correction or whatever, it's people are going for it. People are buying houses. I mean, because even with the rising rate environment, I mean, isn't it crazy how historically low they still are?
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, my first house was 8.5%.
My first house, Bobby, I bought on a 1-year FHA ARM, new construction.
What?
And it was at 5.5% for a 1-year ARM.
1-year ARM.
Yes, sir.
Wow. No.
Yes. So.
Wow.
But rates then were at 7.5%.
Yeah.
So it was an opportunity to have a lower interest rate, which as a 100% commission person, that seemed like a brilliant thing to do.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
My goodness. So tell me, Kelly Lindsay Rogers, advice for someone looking to get into the business. Give me a nugget. You've given me so many nuggets during this podcast. This has been great. But what's the one thing, if there's somebody out there who's looking to break in or looking to make a change, or maybe their business just isn't where they want it to be, what's one thing you want them to take away from this?
So I think narrowing it down to one is hard.
I know. That's why I'm saying narrow it down to one.
Yeah. I think aligning yourself with a great leader or an organization that's going to invest in you, because there's so much to learn in this business. You have guidelines to learn. And you also want someone who's going to invest in you and help coach you in your sales ability. Yeah. Because no one ever is 100% perfect in the sales arena. There's always, I learn every day, and I learn from brand new loan officers, and I learn from coaches who have been in the business for 25 years. So I think aligning yourself with a great leader and a great organization is huge, because there is so much to learn about this industry. Absolutely.
Yeah, I've been doing this a long time, and I try to fail forward at least twice a day. Mm-hmm. So awesome. Well, and I think that probably you nailed the one thing. The second and third thing, I think we save for future episodes. What do you say?
Sounds like a great idea to me, Bobby.
Awesome. Well, I just want to thank you so much for taking time to come and sit in the chair today. It's been awesome. Real quick, though, if somebody is listening to this, how do they find you? How do they connect with you?
Super easy. So I'm a lover of Instagram and Facebook, so you can always find me there at either one, Facebook or Instagram, at Kelly Rogers Team. Or you can always go to our website, which is kellyrogersteam.com.
Nice. All right, everybody. That's been another episode of the Big B Mortgage Cast. Thank you, Miss Kelly Lindsay Rogers.
Thank you, Big B. It's great being here.
On episode 2, we're going to talk about that hyphenated last name thing. All right, I promise. We're going to get there. But hey, guys, if you enjoyed this, or if you found something you enjoy out of it, make sure to leave a comment, give me a like, maybe a share. Reach out to Kelly. She'll be tagged on this episode when it comes out, especially on Facebook. But give me some feedback. Let me know what we're doing right. Let me know what you'd like to see more of or less of, and we'll work to make that happen. But other than that, I hope you guys have a great, productive rest of your day or week, and stay social. See y'all later.